You may think of your serger as your go-to machine for serging knits, finishing edges, or creating children's wear. Did you ever think that same versatile machine could be used for quilting? Used in tandem with your sewing machine, a serge seam adds decorative edges to traditional quilt designs. Sharon Rotz designed 13's a Charm, a fabulous design to start merging your serging into quilting. I'd like to show you how. As the name of this quilting and serging technique implies, 13's a Charm, you'll be choosing 13 fabrics, approximately a yard of each. The fabrics will be cut for both the design, the prairie points, and the backing. We've chosen 13 fabrics that are from the Depression era. Sharon's quilt is retro 1970s. You can see Prince work in combination with this unique quilt design. If you're looking at the design, you'll see that we have the major block is called Sunshine and Shadows. Strip quilting together, half square triangles with solid half square triangles as the shadow. And then there are also rectangles and then the prairie points. Serging techniques on the prairie points as well as the Sunshine and Shadows block. The backing of the fabric is also scrappy with the rest of the fabric used in the back. It's just fun to put together. Today you'll learn the serger-related techniques, the Sunshine and Shadow blocks, as well as the prairie points. But there are other details, and you will find them in Sharon's book and DVD, which is included with the book, called Serge and Merge Quilts. It's published by Krause Publications. As with most quilting projects, the first step is cutting. So let's start with the crosswise cuts. I like to spray starch my fabrics first, spray them, press them, and then cut. You'll be cutting 2 stratas or 2 arrangements of strips. The strips have specific sizes. Strata A is going to start off with 2 1/4 inches, 1 3/4 inches, another 1 3/4 inches, and then 1 1/4. These will be serged together. Strata B also has 4 strips with slightly different measurements. You have 1 3/4 inches, 2 inches, 1 1/4, and another 2 inches. Now the reason for varying the widths of the strips is to offset the seam allowances, preventing bulky seams and adding an interesting design. Usually the next step would be to sew the strips together with a traditional 1/4 of an inch seam. Here's where we're going to take a change. We're going to deviate from the norm. Remember, this is a Speedy serger quilt, so let's serge. To set up your serger for quilting, use a narrow 3-thread overlock stitch. On my Baby Lock Evolution, the machine is set for that overlock stitch. I've removed the left needle and just have the right needle, and you can see the thread in it. Well, speaking of thread, I like to use all-purpose thread, traditional sewing thread, instead of serger thread in the needle. The reason? All-purpose thread is 3-ply compared to the 2-ply of the serger thread. You need the heavier weight to make a difference, to make that decorative seam have more impact. I have the Madeira's Aerofill thread in the needle, and I also have it in the loopers, but I do not have it threaded yet. I must share with you a time-saving feature on my Evolution serger. You can thread both the upper and the lower looper at the same time with Baby Lock's exclusive Extraordinaire threading. Just place the thread ends for the upper looper and the lower looper in the threading ports. Move it in about 1/2 inch or so, and then push the button. And the threads through both the lower looper and the upper looper. It's really magic. I'm going to place the threads behind the presser foot area, just scoot them in the back, and then move the lever to the serging position and close up the machine. Now to create the strata, I have the strips meeting wrong sides together. And I'm going to place underneath the presser foot and serge. Trim off just a hair of the fabric, just a little bit, so that I have a nice smooth edge. You're going to be serging both stratas, A and B, creating 4 strips together. And then after serging the sets of 4, you'll be pressing, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Isn't that a great quilting technique to serge the edges? So you have very decorative threads both on the upper looper as well as the lower looper. Now press all 4 strip seam allowances in one direction. The next step is to cut the half square triangles. I'm using a half square triangle ruler, and I've aligned the pressed strips of both strata A and B, stack them one on top of the other, and set the ruler so that it is the width of the strip, and then just cut along each side of the acrylic template. And as you might guess, you flip or rotate the template, align it on the other side, and cut the next grouping of strips, half square triangles. And you're going to cut quite a few of these to create your quilt. Now the complement of this pieced half square triangle is to have a solid fabric. It's going to be one of the prints, one of those 13 fabrics. Cut the strips the same width as the finished strata. You don't have to really have them all that accurate. Just measure it, the width, and whatever that happens to be, that's the strip that you're going to cut. And cut the strips into half square triangles. To make a block, we're going to meet the companion pieces together. Get the right color combination that fits your needs. Meet the serge triangle to the solid triangle and stitch using traditional techniques, and then chain stitch this together, as you can see, sewing from one block to the other. After pressing the seam allowances to one direction, then arrange your blocks. You're going to have a scrappy arrangement, so get a pleasing arrangement for you and lay out 4 blocks, and then do traditional sewing techniques of sewing them together. And here's a block that has been sewn. The finished 13's a Charm quilt combines a variety of sunshine and shadow blocks, various different color combinations of backgrounds and strips, as well as working with rectangles and squares. And then, of course, the prairie points. The arrangement is up to you. Next, Serger accented prairie points. They're added to the quilt after layering the top, the batting, and the backing. It's part of the binding process. The attractive stitching down the middle adds a nice element to your first serge and merge quilt. Start with 4-inch squares of fabric, and I've pressed them in half, meeting wrong sides together. On my machine, I have disengaged the blade, locked it in the lower position. I'm using the same 3-thread overlock stitch to serge along the fold. Chain stitch several or many fabrics, one right after the other. Then you can cut the chain stitches between the areas and press the folded edges to the middle. You can see that nice accent. As I mentioned, adding these is part of the final step. After you have quilted your layers together and you're going to place the binding on your quilt, pin and stitch the prairie points along the edge. And then, as we're starting to do on this sample, add the binding using your favorite technique. It's a great accent to finish off this quilt. I hope you've enjoyed learning how to create a speedy serger quilt with serge and merge techniques. To learn more about my favorite sergers and sewing machines, as well as to see the products and books used in this video, visit your participating Baby Lock retailer. Tell them Nancy sent you.